Well, hello and welcome to this episode of the Terri Cole Show. I am so happy that you decided to join me today. I am having an illuminating conversation with my guest, Jeffrey Marsh. Jeffrey is the best-selling author of How to Be You, and they are the first non-binary gender fluid author to be published by Random House, which is one of the top 5 publishing companies. I learned so much from my time with them. I hope that you do as well. Please enjoy this episode. Welcome to the Terri Cole Show, the Jeffrey Marsh.
Hi, how are you?
I'm so good and I'm so excited.
How are you with receiving compliments? Can I compliment you?
You can.
Immediately?
Yes.
You were so generous. You know, I am semi-famous as a non-binary rights activist person. Mm-hmm. And I was the first person on national TV to talk about being non-binary. And that was on Newsmax. And they were not happy that I was there to talk about it. Mm-hmm. And I brought up my pronouns with the host of that show, the conservative gentleman who was hosting. And he said something like, I talk how I talk, and you're going to have to correct me on air if I say the wrong thing, right? You said to me, please let me know if there's something that I need to say to be inclusive. And that to me is, you know, sort of the opposite of the treatment I got at Newsmax. Not a surprise coming from you. Mm-hmm. But it speaks to the love with which you approach everything you do.
Oh, thank you.
Honestly.
I so appreciate it, because that description of approaching everything I do with my whole heart and love is really accurate. That is my intention, you know? So I appreciate you recognizing it. It really is nice to hear, because what I'm hoping so much for, Jeffrey, is that our conversation and your work in the world, I've been following you, and I talked about this at the top in your intro, that I found you on Instagram, which I'm sure lots and lots of people have. And I just immediately loved your kind and non-judgmental vibe towards cis folks really working. Right.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, that's correct. But really working, like wanting, knowing that it's okay, like we're gonna do it wrong. But to me, I feel loved by you and anyone else who says, oh, hey, can you say they? Can you, that this is my pronoun, not my preferred pronoun, but my actual pronoun. I feel loved. I always look, it's funny, I just added today my pronouns on Instagram, and I don't know, I do know why I didn't do it sooner. I was like, I think I was misunderstanding the power in doing it. I was like, oh, my audience knows. But by doing it, I'm normalizing the act of, I think, I'm trying to, of just making it be normal, that we just share what our pronouns are. And I remember when years ago, about 5 or 6 years ago, when I had a client who had a friend who was non-binary. We didn't even have that language then. And I remember having a very, I almost want to say like typical internal defensive response. Who are you to change the English language? That's not a thing. I'm
familiar with that one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. And I also did not have an understanding. It's the same thing with the changes I've experienced in my life in the past, I'd say 3 or 4 years, around race and around my own internalized racism and white fragility and the privilege. And in the beginning, I was just so mad, like, no, I'm good and I'm nice and I'm kind and all the things, until I really started doing the work. And I was like, wow, first of all, these things are not mutually exclusive, but you have work to do.
I'm so glad you said that. Yeah, you can be racist and good and nice and kind.
Yeah.
That can be the same person.
Yeah.
And you can be, squeamish around people like me
Mhm.
and be a good and nice and kind person. I've seen it. You said about 23 things that sparked a wonderful sense of belonging in me.
Mm.
It's not that you are focused on getting the rules right. We can talk about the tips, the tricks, how
Yeah.
people like me want to be treated and talked about and all that
Sure.
stuff. We can
Yep.
talk about grammar.
Yes, please.
But where your heart is pointed in the meantime is toward inclusion, toward love. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you've
Mhm.
gotten to that exciting place in being an ally where you are over the hump of caring what other people think of you, and you see the allyship as more important than your own personal reputation or however you want to phrase that.
Yep.
Your junk has become less important than, oh gosh, we need to change the world.
Yeah.
What a
Yes,
beautiful place.
it sure is. But I want to know from you, Jeffrey, where, what inspired this shift? You have a book that is
Mhm.
out right now called How to Be You, and you have the audio version. What is the drop date on that?
It is already out by the
Oh,
time people
excellent.
hear this. So go get it.
Go get it. So they can get it wherever books are sold. They can get it where.
Indeed.
Great. Okay. So
I
Amazon,
was
here we
the
go.
first, speaking of bragging, which I
Please
love
do.
to do, I was the first non binary person to work with Penguin Random House.
Wow.
And actually, the first non binary person to work with any of what in the US is called the Big Five publishers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a bit of a learning curve for them, but it's something that I'm most proud of to open that door.
Oh my God. You should be, because look at the ripple. The thing that I get really excited about, and then I'm going to go back to my question, is when I'm
Mhm.
reading, I watch your videos, but then I could literally jump into those comments for like 2 days. I just go in, and in seeing parents talking about their kids who are non-binary or questioning, and how grateful so many folks are. And of course, I know you also have haters and trolls, and I imagine, because this is the internet and the world, but just seeing these folks having support, being like, I don't know what to do, or I feel like I've done the wrong thing, but now I can course correct with this information. And I shared your, Instagram stuff with my child, and they cried and I cried. And there is such a need for what I see, what you do and the way that you do it, because there's so much fear. I think that with
Mm.
lots of folks who are cisgendered, is that what we call it? Or
Mhm.
who don't have any non-binary, or even gender fluid or pansexual, anything outside of the what would be considered normative, quote unquote, in their life, when they're faced with maybe their child, a friend, a sibling who is questioning, or even comes out as gay or comes out as trans, they have no model of behavior. They don't know. And so, listen, I'm a relatively therapized human. I've been a therapist for 25 years. I've been in therapy for 30 years. And I realized, after my initial reaction to all of the race stuff that was happening, my journey with that hardcore really started about 3.5 years ago. But this is the same thing. I had the same assumption that because I have gay friends, because I have, my niece has a trans lover that we supported getting top, like, I just thought I was immune, or that
Mm.
I was, quote unquote, maybe already doing it. And then I realized, and part of how I realized was through the content, that you shared, because I was learning so much. But here's the thing, Jeffrey, the thing that really made me so drawn to your work is your kindness in teaching. Because if you are a codependent, if you are a perfectionist, if you are an alpha female, a type A person, all of the above, I've been myself recovering from all of those
Good to know
things.
yourself. Yes.
Exactly. You getting it wrong is so terrifying and painful. And so part of the process with really striving to become an ally with all of the race stuff that's been going on, and I say striving to become an ally with the trans and the gay and the all of that too, striving, because it's work. It's a commitment to continue to evolve and to do it badly and to be sorry and to go forward, and knowing that it's more important to do it with like snots coming out of your nose or with your knee scraped than to wait until you think you might have it all perfectly sewn up, because we won't. And now is the time that we need to be inclusive. We need to strive to become allies. We need to open our minds to the experiences of others and care about those experiences rather than judge those experiences. And so I felt very safe to ask a question or to be in your feed. And I saw so many others, and I was like, oh, there's so many like me who your heart is pointed in the right direction, but now you're in the process of actually doing the work to be able to earn the name of ally in a real way in your life. And it requires that, and that's for me, right? That's it's yes, hopefully it benefits other people, but it's not for other people. People, you feel like you're checking boxes, or that it's optical, or it's like, oh, it looks good, I should do that thing. No.
The question remains, what is an ally? And so many people run around thinking it's someone who's perfect at defending the marginalized group or whatever, or explaining or whatever. And it's quite the opposite. Every ally for any marginalized group will go through the buffer period, the middle period, where they're stumbling and fumbling all over. And you'll get corrected. And as that was coming out of my mouth, I thought, well, should I use the word corrected? Because that's awfully punitive, but that's just the facts. You're going to be told, don't say that word, say this one, right? You're going to be told Shakespeare used singular they. It's in Merriam-Webster. It's time to get over it, right? And you might be told that by somebody like me who's not, I have to really, do you know the LGBTQ phrase, to spill the tea?
Does
I'm
that
going to
mean
have to spell a little
like
tea.
Dish the dirt, like tell the truth?
Yeah, tea for truth, yeah.
Yeah.
And, the real tea on this is that it's hard to be people like us. We're not always going to be in the best mood. You talk about my channel and how I come with such kindness. That was really hard work for me to be able to live love and kindness nearly 24/7. And that's what you witness. That comes out in my work. And there are activists who, gosh, it just wears on you to be treated horribly every day.
Yeah.
And I suppose my point is, I love that you now sound like, can you confirm it to me? Sound like you're ready to commit, even if somebody is in a bad mood or punitive or snaps, or, that to me is also real allyship, is you're just in it for the long haul.
Yep. And except, yes, I'm confirming that's true, but here's the thing.
Thanks.
You're human, I'm human. And in transforming the way that we as a society, as a culture, relate to people's individual experiences around their identity, that's really what we're talking about.
Mm.
Like non-binary, I don't identify here and I don't identify here, and I might identify as lots of those things at different points, but it's your right and it's your choice. And I think that changing our sort of collective minds about who gets to make the rules and who gets to decide what that is or what is okay. Like I'm in acceptance, not that you need me to be, but and embracing, because here's the thing, it's not just acceptance. It isn't just get the pronoun right. It's like, can't we go from acceptance to celebration of the beauty, the individuality, the creativity, the right?
Wait a minute. You're doing allyship 401? Is that what you're doing?
But you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah.
Yes. And actually, that celebrating can happen before you quote unquote get it. Right? A lot of people don't get it when it comes to non-binary identities. And if people are lucky enough to see the video and how amazing both of us look, at some point go on social media and look for the clips of this conversation. I quote unquote, to most people, I think, still look like a man. And they just don't get it.
It's okay.
And actually, I don't care.
Right.
I'm not saying that in like a, I don't care, buddy, kind of way, a confrontational way. Actually, in my soul, I know what's true. And so it's not relevant to me what people get or don't get. And actually, it's not relevant to treating people with kindness, to listening, to looking in someone's eyes with love and acceptance.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And so few people do it.
I know there's so many blocks to it. It's feeling threatened. It's feeling
indeed.
It's you've got your own, if you have your own unacknowledged, unconscious feelings about yourself and your own sexuality, it can be really threatening. We have all of this, what's it called, reaction formation happening, which is like this psychological thing where you do the opposite of what you feel. So it's like you have a lot of these senators who are like anti-gay, all the things, no gayness, and then they're like on the New Jersey Turnpike, getting blown in getting caught being sexual, yes. Same sex sexual. I just really, the Jersey just came out. I was like, getting a BJ, like nice. But it's true because there's this denial of that. Now, I'm not saying, of course, that's everyone, but that's real. So wait, I want to go back to you and your story. So can we? Because I could also just do this all day, but I think people are interested in what inspired. Yes, go get the book. Yes, listen, you can get it right now, the audio. It is called, and it is a bestseller already, How to Be You. And it is voiced by the Jeffrey Marsh. That is
it's great. My voice saying nice things to you.
So tell me a little bit about what inspired you, because you are the first doing this. Time Magazine and all these other outlets. What inspired you to go public, sort of? Because that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. I actually was first years ago accidentally famous on Vine.
Oh yeah, Vine.
Rest in peace, the Vine app. It was a lovely app, actually. A lot of, yes, as you said, haters and trolls, but altogether a lot of community there as well. And the people on that app saw me for who I was as I was still formulating how to talk about who I am. And that sort of propelled me into at least the social media spotlight. And you said it so brilliantly earlier, and you made me think of the time when I was on Vine and I got very direct, very pointed, very enthusiastic death threat. There was one person who just kept commenting, and telling me all the details about how I would be hurt and worse by this person. how they would find me and all of that stuff.
Terrible. Okay.
And I needed to decide if I would stay, if what I was doing was important enough to stay for things like that. And I also wanted to decide if whether what I was doing was important enough so that if the kids, which also refers to, kids' souls in adults, our inner children and stuff, if all the collective kids seeing me get so much hate was going to be overcome by the love that I was giving. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so it's like, I don't want to re-traumatize people by people seeing all the hate I get, right?
Yeah.
And I decided eventually seeing me post and getting hate, and then seeing me post the next day, getting hate, the next day, getting hate, the next day, and continually showing up and being me and being gorgeous and being talented, right? That was the message at a certain point.
It's yes. And giving people permission to sort of do the same. But you know what else though, Jeffrey, you're showing is that, yes, there's hate, but on Vine and on IG, and I'm sure all your other platforms, there's also so much love, and not just coming from you, so much love and acceptance and gratitude coming at you.
Absolutely.
And that is very powerful. I love the ones who are like, I'm like a Midwest mom. Like, I don't even know, but I just know that my child, and now I found you. And it was so, like, people who are not in, this is not like the liberal elite who are in like New York City or wherever they are. These are people who are in pain and are authentically sharing their vulnerability, their gratitude. But part of that is the safe space that you created. And I think it's very important, the sharing of the, you will share different messages that you get. Some of them are from haters. A lot of them are from lovers. But it sort of covers all of our experiences where so many people are seeing themselves reflected back and feel accepted. And you don't have to do it perfectly, and you're welcome here as long as you're wanting to learn and you're here with an open heart or whatever. So can you walk us back a little bit to
not
childhood?
Or whatever, that's the most important part. You're welcome here, right? If you have an open heart.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. No haters, please. All right, moving into your life though, tell us a little bit about, I know you had a rough go being too fabulous for a small town. So tell us.
Yes. My mom used to joke. I write about this a little bit in the book. She used to tell this joke. Oh gosh, our bathroom caught on fire. Thank goodness it never reached our house. So that gives you an idea. We did have indoor plumbing eventually when I was a kid, but that gives you an idea of how rural my childhood was, in the middle of Pennsylvania. And another thing that'll give you an idea, which I didn't include in the book, but might go in book number 2, the church, when I was in high school, our church, the basement was also the Klan meeting house. So it was a double purpose. There was a church upstairs, sanctuary.
Wow, that's terrifying.
The multi-purpose room was also the Klan meeting house. That gives you a hint of where I grew up. And it was horrible. I can't mince words. It was really hard and horrible. And one of the questions I get asked a lot lately is, if you could go back in a time machine and talk to younger Jeffrey in Pennsylvania, what would you say? And I think the thing that I would say first is, thank you. You knew. You knew everything when you were 12, right? You knew what was important, you knew who you were, and you knew what the world was about. And I don't know if this will make sense on a spiritual level, but it's like my inner child. We can talk about what exactly I mean when I say that, but my inner child held on to that truth while I went around through my, later teen years, my college years, trying to deny who I was, trying to hide it, trying to not, attract attention, trying to convince people I was something I wasn't, and trying to fit in and all that stuff. My inner child held on to that truth. And so part of that thank you is, oh my goodness, now I can return triumphant to that truth because you were the one who knew. Thanks.
It's like the hero's journey,
Yes.
Just
I guess we don't tell those. I guess we tell those stories for a reason, right?
exactly.
That is the story. Yeah.
Because part of what it seems like is happening, the ripple effect, is, my motivation for so much of what I do is I'm hoping to spare others the painful experiences that I've had. That's it, right? Deepak Chopra had said to me years ago, I will not do the accent, but because I'm bad at it. But he's like, think of if you can lessen the suffering of another through some super painful thing that you experienced, you should, and consider it. And he was being funny and said, consider it karma in your karma bank. And I was like, I think my karma is pretty good, but okay, why not add some more? But it inspired me to do exactly what you're doing, wanting to help others suffer less, right? In this life, in our human family.
Mm-hmm. And I got to a point, I spent, which we can also talk about, I've spent the last 20 years studying Zen, and I lived at a monastery for a while. And the thing you make me think of is the part in one's spiritual journey where you decide you are the one that's going to grow up. You're interacting with all these people, you're looking around, you're seeing just a ton of people who refuse to grow up and are still acting out all of their childhood stuff. And a light switch goes on for you, and you're like, oh, I'm going to decide to be that person. I'm going to be the one, even though it's not fair, even though I shouldn't have to, even though this is what I'm choosing now.
Right.
And it's just obvious all over your page that that's your choice, right?
Why? Yes, my friend. Thank you. I want to ask you, who inspired you though? Did you have your touchstone humans along the way? Anyone who was in your corner, whether it was someone that you saw who was well-known, whether it was a counselor at school, who?
We'll start with Mrs. Blackwell, who was my guidance counselor in high school, which reminds me, I should probably do an appreciation post for guidance counselors and librarians and science teachers, the folks that reach out a hand to LGBTQ kids unconditionally. Mrs. Blackwell is one of the reasons I'm still here, to be totally frank. She saw me for who I was and loved me for who I was, and I wasn't getting that elsewhere. So she was so important, my guidance counselor at school. And another person you made me think of immediately was David Bowie. And David, who knows how David, if David was alive now, how he would refer to himself, or what David Bowie's pronouns would be. But seeing somebody who played so much with convention, stereotypes, what to wear, how to act, was a huge inspiration for me growing up on the farm in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I could see that, and liberating, because maybe seeing David Bowie in full face and all the ways that he allowed himself to express himself artistically and otherwise, is like, oh, perhaps, did that feel kind of like permission or feel like aspirational or? What?
I mean, watching David Bowie in Labyrinth be sexy AF
Mm.
with eyeshadow and like
Yeah.
tweezed brows to the nth. And I think probably metaphorically important, king of the goblins, sort of like leader of the outcasts in that
Mhm.
movie, was just such a profound experience to me. And I really, it's that funny thing where, you know, I watched that movie and I was like, were there other characters in that movie? Was there anyone else? When like
Right.
David was not meant to be, you know, the main character, right? But turned out to be for me because that freedom was so there, so present.
Mm.
And I mean, not to over psychoanalyze myself, but I guess also, you know, told that he was darkness, but also had power and joy and
Ooh,
tight pants.
yes, he
They don't hurt
did.
either.
I love it. So can we talk about grammar a little bit? Can we talk about
Of
pronouns? Can we
course.
talk about um, so non-binary, gender fluid? So that's what it says in the bio with a message of positivity and
Indeed.
self-acceptance. We're talking about the book. Red Lipstick Jeffrey Marsh is a master of video. That was from O Magazine. And it says non-binary, gender fluid, author of How to Be You. So non-binary, go. Like, let's do like rapid. I'll just say the things. And then I'm going to
Sure.
run out of things in about 3 things because I don't know enough. So you're going to have to then fill the things and do the answer. But
I absolutely will. What you're looking for is absolute beginner 101, ultra inclusive. Great.
yes.
So when someone like me uses the word binary, you may recognize that word from mathematics. It means two. And that's what most people are told are the only options when it comes to human gender experience: man and woman, the binary, those two genders. Well, turns out there are a lot more things that a person can be, a lot more genders. So anybody who's not a man and not a woman is called non binary. That's me, non binary. So that's a huge umbrella term that just means you're not a man, you're not a woman, which is true for me. And that can include terms like gender fluid, gender queer, agender people are not a man and not a woman. And
Mm,
I mean, not to get too meta here, but words are not human hearts. So it's really great to have the labels and it's great to know what they are. And it's not the full totality of a human experience. But you knew that.
absolutely. Yes, of course. But I think it's certainly worth repeating.
Mm-hmm.
So you said gender queer. So I've read lots of different things that if you're a cis person and you identify as being straight or as being a straight woman, which is what I identify as, that I should not say the word queer. Is that
I love how
accurate?
your voice just dropped when you said it there. I shouldn't say the word queer.
Queer.
On a podcast with me, you can say it. Go for
You
it.
can shout it.
Yeah, you can shout it, right? It's one of those things that was used against us, and now many of us have reclaimed. And to me, here's the other thing. Here's the other thing that you have so brilliantly opened the door to. We're not a monolith. So you'll talk to another non-binary person and they'll
Yeah.
be like, queer is damaging, don't use queer.
Yeah.
And to me, that's part of the beauty of who we are. And again, not asking cis people to follow the rules perfectly, because then I think you'll feel resentment when you run into a different non-binary person and they're going to give you a different rule, right?
Right. Right. You're
Which is
like,
bound
wait.
to happen. We're human beings. It happens in the
Right.
feminist movement, right? It happens
Of
in the
course.
anti-racist
Everywhere.
movement. Different
Right.
people have different ways of approaching justice and what that
Mm,
looks like.
right.
And if you want to use the word queer, I'm okay with it.
Okay. I think I'm going to stick to gender fluid. But
Okay.
does that mean the same thing, though? That's my question.
It can. And the subtle difference to me would be somebody who's queer, gender queer, I've heard talked about as there's kind of a political element to it.
Yeah.
That queer is this ultra inclusive term, but also a very like, I will show you to
Yeah,
put labels on me,
yeah, yeah.
kind of attitude, which is wonderful, which I love. And gender fluid, as the name, sort of makes me feel when I say
Mm-hmm.
it, is very soft and flowing like a river, that your gender sort of morphs and becomes new and interesting and wonderful things as you navigate different spaces in different parts of the world.
Yeah. That's why I like gender fluid. I just want to make sure we're on the same page of what it meant, what it means.
Yes.
And I agree with you. I know that there's not, these are things that I hope those of you who are listening, if you're interested in this, if you have an aspiration to be more inclusive in
Indeed.
your life and in your work, that you realize that there are people like the Jeffrey Marsh, as I like to call them, on Instagram and other places where for free, and you can also buy their book, but there is education for you every day. I spend 15 minutes looking at the Instagram accounts that I learn from for the things that I want to learn. And anyone can do that. And so I was so grateful that you wanted to come on the show and that you were willing to do it, because it's our responsibility to to learn, to take responsibility for our own education. And so I'm so grateful that you have a beautiful book, because that people are like, well, how can I learn? Well, you can buy the audio of my book or whatever. There's tons of great information in there, but it's a place to start. And I find that your whole vibe, your platform, who you are, your personhood is a very welcoming. That was my experience, a welcoming place to learn more and to take that responsibility further. All right, so we only did two things. We need to have. Are there more things? Because there are. Like we did gender fluid, gender queer, and non-binary. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to say
other?
yes, I'd love to say a little something about they, them pronouns.
Yes, please.
And how important they are. As stated before, but I'll say it again because I think people need to get used to hearing it. I am not a man and I am not a woman. So therefore, also, I'm not a he and I'm not a she. People are extremely resistant to using they. And I think, wow, am I going to go there directly? Yes, because I'm a direct person.
Yes.
Out of bigotry, anti-trans bias, anti-non-binary bias. And they will couch it in, I just care about grammar. I just care about the English language, right? And the two were, there are several counter arguments, but the two most salient counter arguments are Brangelina. We made a whole new word to talk about the coupling of Brad and Angelina. You use that. You change the language constantly to suit your own purposes, even just on a lark to be cute. You change the language.
Yep.
It's certainly important enough to learn a new habit for the dignity of a fellow human being.
Agreed.
That's one. Second one, you use they to refer to one person constantly. Someone left their wallet here. I hope they'll come back and get it. Mm-hmm. Where are they? Mm-hmm. They're probably missing their wallet, right? Or, when you're gossiping, you want to keep someone anonymous. You say, my coworker said the stupidest thing and they got in trouble for it, right? when you want to tell a story, but keep someone anonymous, even though you know, in quotes, know the gender of that person, right? So we're asking you to go a step further, and you know me as a human being, and my pronouns are they.
Right on.
That's it. Jeffrey left their wallet here, their YSL clutch here. I hope they come back and get it.
Or maybe I hope they don't, but yes. Maybe I could keep that YSL clutch, but yes. Oh, I love it. That is actually really helpful. You know what? I have one last question to ask you, but I want to sort of wrap this up in saying how much I appreciate your time and your generous heart and your generous spirit. And to my listeners and those watching on YouTube, this is, when people say to me, if they're all up in arms, whether it's political stuff or whatever, here's the deal. Like, I'm a psychotherapist, but I'm a humanist. Like, that is what's most important to me. I don't identify as much else in a real way as I am a part of you and me, Jeffrey, our human family. And I feel a devotion and an obligation to be inclusive, even if I'm going to fumble around to figure out how to do it. The more I do it, the easier it gets. So just so much gratitude for what you're putting out there, making it easier for those of us who identify as humanists who want to love our fellow humans in the way that those fellow humans would like to be loved, right? Like, it's same thing in healthy relationships. It's, if it's your anniversary and your partner gives you like tickets to the Super Bowl, you know who that's not for? You, if you don't like football, right? It's loving people and respecting people in a way that doesn't suit us, right? I want my husband to relate to me and understand me in a way that makes me feel understood, not in a way that he thinks I should feel or thinks he understands me. Does that make sense?
Amen to that.
So I'm talking about. Right, I have a question for you on boundaries. So this is my last thing I always ask my guests. Personally, what has been your most challenging boundary struggle and how did you overcome it, if you have?
So as a traumatized kid, as you mentioned, I had a rough childhood. As a traumatized kid, my hardest thing ever to overcome with boundaries was my fear of being seen as not nice. And I use that word specifically. So I was not afraid of not seeming compassionate, not seeming kind, but nice, meaning the way we are trained to be deferential to each other's egos.
Right.
If I use that phraseology, that makes sense to you, right?
Yeah.
That
Absolutely.
is often seen as quote unquote nice. And I had a pathological fear of not being seen as nice.
Right.
And in order to overcome that, I had to purposefully do something that was compassionate and kind, but not nice. You know those places? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
And boundaries are often that thing.
Right.
It is compassionate, it is kind, it is clear, and it is not nice. In quotes.
Exactly. I love that so much. All right. So where can people find you? On Instagram, you are at the Jeffrey Marsh. We know that.
Indeed.
Where else?
I'm ultra accessible. You can just email me. hello@jeffreymarsh.com.
Great. And your book is out?
Indeed. Get the audiobook right now if you like my dulcet tones. That's the other thing I wanted to compliment you about. Your voice is gorgeous.
Why?
We should do an audiobook together, I think.
Seriously.
Guided meditations, right?
I love it. The inclusive guided meditations.
Mhm.
Well, I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you
Thank
so
you.
much. To be continued,
Thank
I
you.
have no doubt our paths will meet again on the interweb as they do and on purpose. But just, I appreciate you. And I'm sure my audience is going to appreciate learning what it is that we got to learn from you today, the Jeffrey Marsh. So thank you. I'm kissing you.
Thank you. Mwah.
All right, so we're going to cut there and then we're going to do some kind of a promo for the
Perfect.
show. All right.
Great.
So
I'm getting a little crackle in my headphones,
yeah,
but my voice sounds okay to you, right?
Yeah, I'm just going to shut the door. It's this door open and there's a.
It just started happening randomly. So
yeah, I know. This is what I'm here. I'm just going to shut this to take the sound. Is that better? Oh no, I can't hear you at all. So maybe I did something. Wait a minute. It's probably me. I hate these earphone things.
no, this.
Oh yeah.
It was my end.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi.
Hi. So we're gonna do why don't we just riff for like 30 seconds and then we'll use that as to get people to watch the show and listen to the podcast. Ready?
Great.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, it's us.
We got our best looks. Do you know LEWK for the podcast?
Yeah, we do have our best looks, but I'm a little too old to do the LEWK.
Are you? I'm
little.
44. Am I too old?
You're a babe.
Listen.
No, I think if you're not over 50, you can still use it.
We are overachievers to look this good for a podcast. I mean, extra credit kind of people. You know what I'm saying? That's us.
I do, but people are going to be seeing our video. And you know what? The Jeffrey Marsh, I really think that people should tune in. You know why? Because what we talked about was fire, fire, fire emojis.
I think everything was fire that we talked about.
Agreed.
In so many senses of the word, we were on fire.
We were on fire. So you guys come, listen, watch.
Please.
You can see us on YouTube. You can listen to us at the Terri Cole Show on iTunes. Yeah, if you want to learn and be entertained, join me and the Jeffrey Marsh on the new episode of the Terri Cole Show.
Come join us.
Please do.